Two wars on two continents, both with global superpowers involved. Could the world be on the brink of something much bigger? Some say we're closer to World War III than we've been in decades. Let's break it down. Let's start by breaking down the two conflicts at the center of today's conversation. First, the Russia-Ukraine war. In February 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, marking the most significant military conflict in Europe since World War II. Russia's aim? To reassert its influence over former Soviet territories, control key strategic areas, and prevent Ukraine from aligning with NATO. The West responded by providing billions in military aid to Ukraine and imposing crippling sanctions on Russia. But the war has dragged on for over 2 years, with no end in sight, and both sides locked in a brutal stalemate. While the West avoids direct military confrontation with Russia, this war has already reshaped the geopolitical landscape and drawn in powerful nations. Now let's turn to the Israel-Hamas conflict. This fight over land, identity, and political control dates back to the mid-20th century. But in recent months, the violence has escalated dramatically. Hamas, the Islamist militant group controlling Gaza, launched a series of attacks on Israel, triggering a massive military response. Israel's counterstrikes have devastated Gaza, while Hamas continues to fire rockets and engage in guerrilla warfare. The conflict has once again destabilized the region, but this time it has the potential to spiral into something much bigger. Iran is lurking in the background, with Hezbollah in Lebanon threatening Israel. So why are these wars more dangerous than past conflicts? What sets them apart? First, it's the direct involvement of global superpowers. Every time NATO sends advanced weaponry or Russia escalates its military campaigns, the risk of direct confrontation increases. A single misstep, an errant missile, or an overreaction could trigger a larger, uncontrollable war. In the Israel-Hamas conflict, the threat lies in the complex web of alliances. Iran supports Hamas and Hezbollah, and they've shown a willingness to escalate if Israel pushes too hard. Meanwhile, the U.S. is deeply tied to Israel, providing extensive military and financial support. If this conflict widens, it could drag the entire Middle East into chaos, with Iran, Saudi Arabia, and even Turkey playing unpredictable roles. And the global impact of these wars makes them particularly dangerous. The Russia-Ukraine war has disrupted global energy markets, causing spikes in oil and gas prices that hurt economies worldwide. The Israel-Hamas conflict has the potential to destabilize the entire Middle East, a region that supplies a significant portion of the world's oil. If these wars expand, the global economic fallout could fuel unrest in other parts of the world, adding yet another layer to the chaos. But are they truly the first steps toward World War III? Well, history is filled with lessons on how small conflicts can snowball into global wars. The question now is whether the Israel-Hamas and Russia-Ukraine conflicts could follow a similar trajectory. Let's start with World War I. What began as a relatively isolated event, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, quickly escalated into a full-scale global war due to a complex web of alliances. Countries were dragged into the conflict one by one, not necessarily because they wanted to fight, but because they were bound by treaties and military agreements. The parallels with today's situation are striking. NATO, Russia's alliances, and Iran's ties to Hamas all create the potential for a chain reaction. Then there's World War II, which began with the multiple regional conflicts that expanded into a global struggle. Germany's invasion of Poland in 1939 triggered war in Europe, while Japan's aggressive expansion in Asia eventually drew in the United States. Once again, we see echoes of this today. Russia's actions in Ukraine are part of a larger geopolitical strategy, and any further escalation in the Middle East could have ripple effects across the world. However, today's world is different in key ways. Nuclear weapons, cyber warfare, and economic interdependence mean that conflicts can escalate rapidly, even without a traditional military confrontation. This raises the question, what specific events or triggers could push these current wars over the edge and into a global conflict? one of the most immediate concerns is a direct confrontation between NATO and Russia. Ukraine has received extensive support from NATO countries. If a Russian missile accidentally hits a NATO country like Poland or Romania, NATO could invoke Article 5, leading to collective military action against Russia. Given Russia's nuclear capabilities, this would be an extraordinarily dangerous development. Even worse, if Russia perceives that it's losing the war and uses a tactical nuclear weapon to shift the battlefield, the West would be forced to respond, leading to an unprecedented escalation. The situation in the Middle East is equally volatile. If Israel's military operations against Hamas escalate, we could see a broader regional war. Iran's involvement would be a game changer. Iran already backs both Hezbollah and Hamas, and any Israeli strikes on Iranian soil could provoke a massive retaliation. The U.S. is deeply invested in Israel's security, and if American troops or assets are attacked, the U.S. could be drawn into a larger conflict. This could spiral into a showdown between Iran, Israel, and the U.S., with regional powers like Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Egypt also being forced to take sides. A less visible but equally dangerous path to escalation is through cyber warfare and economic warfare. Russia has already engaged in cyber attacks against Ukraine and other countries supporting it, and a significant cyber attack on critical infrastructure in a NATO country could be seen as an act of war. Similarly, if the economic sanctions against Russia and Iran continue to tighten, these countries might retaliate with cyber attacks on Western financial systems, energy grids, or communications networks. The effects of such an attack could be devastating. So, could the Israel-Hamas and Russia-Ukraine wars really escalate into World War III? Are we on the brink of a global conflict, or is there still time to pull back from the edge? Let me know what you think in the comments. Until next time, take care and stay tuned.